Hello, thank you for joining us for Art Rocks with me, James Fox Smith from Country Roads Magazine. There is no force like music to soothe us, to awaken our spiritual inclinations, or to make us get up and dance. Gregory Lyons holds a doctorate degree in music and he teaches it at Louisiana Tech in Ruston, where he specializes in percussion instruments. Instruments that generate sound when they are shaken, struck, or scraped. So here's Dr. Lyons to pick up the beat of his story.
I got excited about the marching band drum line when I was around elementary school age, junior high school age. One of the stipulations to join the drum line was that you take 2 years of piano lessons. I took that clearly because of our keyboard percussion instruments, which are the same layout as a piano. The reason for learning piano is you are actually touching the piano keys when you're playing. And then when you can bring that to your percussion training and you've got a mallet, you can't touch it, but you can have an approximation of where things lay, and that makes it a little easier to do. Percussionists are the only instrumentalists who don't touch our actual instruments. Like violinists, they're holding their instrument, or clarinetists or flutists. Vocalists, their instrument is their voice. But in our case, we're always separated by a mallet or a stick, and so the connection that we have with our instruments is very different because there's not that tactile sensation of what a note sounds or feels like. In high school, like a lot of programs, we had a concert band, a marching band, and a jazz band. I had the experience of playing concert percussion instruments in the concert band, which would include snare drums, bass drums, cymbals, all the keyboard percussion equipment, and timpani behind me. All of that started in junior high school. And then the jazz band had the drum set and the piano, and because of my piano background, I actually played piano in our jazz band. And then the marching band, I played the marching snare drum. But marching bands, competitive marching bands, have snares, tenors, and bass drums and cymbals, and sometimes a front ensemble with keyboard percussion equipment. It's the common practice at the college level when you go to study percussion that by and large we always try to learn everything to make ourselves more versatile when we're then on the job market. And if you need to play a jazz gig and you can cover drum set, or if you need to go play with an orchestra and cover cymbals and other percussion instruments there. My training at all the institutions that I studied, that was the overriding philosophy of my instructors, and so they really ingrained that in me, and I do love to play all of the different instruments. There's just always something to learn. There's always a new instrument. They each have some unique, particular technique and sound. You can use percussion in a variety of ways. It can be an extra color, an extra shimmer of sound. It might sound empty or cavernous without that on top of the melody that might be in another wind instrument or the vocalist. So providing that extra color. The main area from drum sets is just the rhythmic support. It's providing that driving rhythm, which is going to be different from style to style. If that's not there, then it just doesn't work. It usually works best when the performer has studied and has a deep understanding of the style necessary for that particular genre. I think that's another part about being a percussionist. We naturally like to play with other people because we're usually not the center of attention. Our contribution is in rhythmic support, but there are solo opportunities to play as a percussionist, which I had in my training and which I've continued here at Louisiana Tech. So I perform solo faculty recitals where I perform on as many instruments as I can get on stage. Typically I try to have something from each of the main areas. You can also play classic works from the percussion repertoire. But the thing about solo percussion is compared to pianists or violinists or vocalists, and even brass players. The number of pieces that are solo that we have at our disposal are significantly fewer because it really didn't take off as a thing, solo percussion, until the early part of the 20th century into the 20th century. So our repertoire is only about 100 years old compared to some of the other areas. Like pianists, you see them perform with symphonies and they're playing pieces from 1800 and earlier. So that's just different for us. I also perform with usually about 2 to 3 symphonies per year. I'm fortunate to play the principal percussion position with the Rapide Symphony Orchestra in Alexandria. That is a wonderful group of musicians who are comprised of other faculty from around the state, musicians from really all parts of Louisiana. Also in Monroe, the Monroe Symphony, and then with the Shreveport Symphony. I've also played with the Texarkana Symphony a couple of times. Each of them are just fantastic organizations and do wonderful presentations of their music. In addition to that, I have some smaller groups, some chamber groups that I play with. So several percussion quartets. This is my 13th year here at Louisiana Tech. I'm associate professor of music, and when I first arrived, one thing that I missed was an opportunity I had in some other states in participating in new music festivals or contemporary classical music festivals. With my colleague Mel Mobley at the University of Louisiana at Monroe, we had the idea in 2016 to create that here. And we thought by taking the resources from Louisiana Tech, where I teach, and ULM, we could combine our resources and involve our local musicians in performances of living composers. The musicians are faculty members largely from ULM and Tech, but we also have faculty from Northwestern State, LSU, Grambling, Southern. We've had a variety of wonderful professional musicians come up and then work together, which we don't often get to do, unfortunately, because we're siloed sort of in our own institutions. So that's a real treat. We invite anyone, though, young or old composers, they have to be living, and we invite them to submit works. They can submit up to 3 pieces. We had over 100 composers submit over 220 pieces. A committee will evaluate each of those works and will actually select about 30 to 40 of them for performance at the festival. It's a treat to have all of the visiting composers here in our area working with us, talking about their music, sharing that with the public, where we make everything free. We go out and we perform in art museums. We've performed at the Dixie Center for the Arts here in Ruston. In Monroe, we performed at the Strauss Theater Center over there, and we also perform at the Black Bayou National Wildlife Refuge, and that's why we call it the New Music on the Bayou. The audience members coming to the festival not only are invited to be at the concerts, but they're also encouraged and invited to attend our rehearsals where the composers will talk about why they chose a certain thing to do in the music and what the purpose is behind the piece.